Hi everyone, welcome you all. In the today's video, we are going to see one of the most important testing which we need to conduct as part of database testing, which is asset properties testing. So first of all, let us understand what is asset properties. So A means atomic, C means consistent, I means isolated, D means durable. So atomic, consistent, isolated, and durable. So when exactly we need to conduct this type of testing? So whenever your application is doing some transactions between the source and the target, and especially when you're working with the banking applications or financial applications and money related transactions, so we need to always test asset properties, whether your application is supporting asset properties or not. And this particular testing is mainly focused on the transaction and transactional data. Okay. So first let us see what is exactly the meaning of atomic, consistent, isolated, and durable. So atomic means all changes to the data must be performed successfully or not at all. So what does that mean? So whenever you do some transaction from source to target, let's say here there is a person called A and another person called B. So A is a person who is initiating the money transfer to the B. So whenever you A wanted to transfer money to the B, he has to perform certain things, right? So there are the money transaction should happen through different steps. So whenever he is initiated this transaction, so all the steps should be successfully executed, and then the transaction will be updated in the B side. But some because of some reason, suppose after completion of few steps, because of some reason it got failure somewhere, then what should be happen? So the whole transaction should be cancelled, and again it should restart from the beginning. So that is called atomic feature. So all changes to the data must be performed. If it cannot perform, it should be go back and initiate the transaction from the beginning. That means not at all. Either it should perform successfully or not at all, but it should not perform the partial transaction. So that is a meaning of atomic. So atomic property says all changes to the data must be performed successfully or not at all, but partial transactions are not applicable here. That is called atomic property. The next one is consistent. Consistent means data must be a consistent state before and after the transaction. So data we need to mainly test here. So for example, again take A and B. So when I take two accounts A and B, so A is having 100 rupees and B is also having 100 rupees. Now A is sending 50 rupees to the B. Now B becomes B receives a 50 rupees. Now it becomes a 150 rupees. So before transaction, what is the total amount of data? So here 100 and here 200 is a total amount in two accounts. Now after completion of the transaction also, it should be 200. So after completion of the transaction, A becomes 50 because 50 rupees already transfer, and B becomes 150. So 50 plus 150, 100. This is called as a consistency. So in asset properties, consistency says before and after transactions, the data should be consistent. Data should be consistent when you perform the transaction before and after. That is called consistent property. And the next one is isolated. Isolated means no other process can change the data while the transaction is running. So again, let's say A is one account and there are another two people, let's say B and a C. And A is initiated one transaction to the B. Until unless this transaction is completed, the second transaction should not start. That's called isolated. Isolated means no other process can change the data while the transaction is running. That means A contains $100 and A is initiated fund transfer to the B, let's say $50. And at the same time, on the same data, the other transaction should not start. That means another transaction should not use the same data again. And it should wait till the old transaction is completed. So that's called isolated. So no other process can change the data while transaction is running. And the next one is a durable. So durable means what? The changes made by the transaction must be perfect. So as soon as you do some transaction between A to B, and the transaction should be properly updated in the particular database table. That's called durability. So for example, A is initiating a transaction to the B, and that data should be available in the database. While performing the transaction, because of some reason, database is gone down or system is get shut down. So what about this transaction? What about the data? The data should not lose. And if the transaction is successful, the data should be available in the database. If the transaction is failure or something is not happen, again, it should go back and recover the system. So when I try to redo the transaction, again, it should come to the initial position. So that's called durability. So because of any impacts or any changes like in database down or system is gone shut down or net connection is failure, because of all these impacted things, the data should not impact. That's called durability. So the changes made by the transaction must be persist in the database. So these are the 4 important asset properties which we need to test as part of our database testing. Now I'll show you a few more examples where exactly we use asset properties. Let's understand by taking few examples. So as I said before, atomicity means what? If any transaction is performed, either it should be performed completely or should not perform at all, right? But the transaction should not break in between or execute partially. Either the transaction should be complete or it should not at all complete, but the partial transactions should not allowed. That's the reason it is also called as all or nothing rule. Now, if I just look at these examples, here I have A and B. There are 2 accounts. So A contains a $30, there's a before, and B contains $100 initial amount. Now B is trying to send $10 to the B, and $10 is debited from A account. Now A contains only $20. Now when you test the B account, now B initially having 100, and these $10 should credit it to B account. After creditation, it should become 150, but still the available balance is showing only 100. That means what? The transfer process got failure somewhere. This is partial transaction, and as per the atomic property, it should not allow. Okay, these type of bugs we need to find out as part of database testing. So atomicity. Atomic means what? The transaction should completed or it should not start at all, but partial transaction are not allowed. Here, what is exactly happening? $10 are debited from A and $10 are credited into B, but what is available balance it is showing incorrect. That means somehow the transaction is not properly completed. So this is not a atomic transaction. Now, if I just look at this example, this is called atomic transaction. So initially $30 are there and $10 are debited, which are sent to the B account. And now available is $20. Now, when you come to the B account, initially $100 are there. So $10 are credited to B account from A. Now it becomes a $110. So credited successfully. Right. So here initially what happened previously 100 plus $10, it should be 110, but it is 100 still. So this is atomic property satisfied, but here the atomic property is not satisfied. So this is how we can do the testing in the database, whether our data is atomic supporting or not, our transaction is supporting atomic or not. And then the next one is consistency. So before and after transaction, the data should be consistent. So if I just look at this example, now here A contains $300 initially, and he is also doing the transactions, 2 transactions. One is B and another one is C. So initially $300 he is having in this account and debit to B. So now he sent $50 to the B, and available is $250. Now till here 1 transaction. Initially 300 and $50 sent to the B. Now available is a $250. Now come to the B account. B account initially $100 are there, and it is credited $50 from account A. Now it becomes $150, and this is 1 transaction. It is perfectly fine. Now come to other transaction. So now when A is trying to do the transaction to the C, it should consider 250 is available balance. It should start from here, right? This is the latest data, 250, because $50 already sent to B. Now the available balance is 250. Now A is trying to send $20 to the C. Now it becomes a 230. This is called consistency. So if any change in the database is made, it should remain the preserved always. In case of transaction, the database remains the consistent before and after the transaction. The data should always be correct. So this is called as a consistency, which we need to test as part of the database testing. And the next property is isolation. So in isolation, most of the times we do concurrent transactions or parallel transactions. So what is a concurrency means? So we initiate multiple transactions at the same time. Let us say here A is an account and B and C. So T1 and 2, these are two different transactions are initiated at the same time. So if I just look at here, A contains $100 initially and debit to B. So it send $20 to B account. And now available balance is 80. So this is one transaction, T1. And in the B account, initially $50 are there. After A is transferred the amount $20, now it becomes a $70. So this is one transaction which is successful. Unless this transaction is completed, the another transaction T2 should not initiate, because after completion of this transaction, the data will be reduced, right? Available balance becomes 80. Okay, on top of $100, it should not perform two transactions at the same time. So once transaction is completed, data will be updated. On updated data, rest of the transaction should be continued. So available is 80. Now again, A is sent amount $20 to the C. Now here, debit C is $20. Now available balance is 60. Okay. So now C is getting the data from the A. So here amount is debiting to the C or crediting to the C after completion of A to B transaction. This is called isolation. As soon as one transaction is completed, the other transaction should be wait till the first transaction is completed, because the data will be updated after completion of one transaction, and after updation of the data, then second transaction will start. So this is called isolation. So one transaction should not impact on any other transactions which are running concurrently. So that is called as isolation, basically independent execution. Okay, independent execution. And the last property is durable. So durability means we need to ensure that the data is not lost in case of system failure or restart, and in present in the same state as it was before the system failure or restart. Is a kind of a recovery testing. So when you do something or when you do some transaction, in the middle of the transaction, something got failure, immediately the system should be recovered and it should come to the initial point. And whenever you are trying to initiate the same transaction one more time, it should start from the beginning, right? That is called durability. So how we can test this? While performing the transaction, we need to intentionally shut down the database, or we need to intentionally shut down the service, particular application service, and then check how the data is impacting, how the transaction is working, and transaction is basically failing or not. And because of that failure, how the data is impacting in the database. So that we need to test. So this is called durability. And these type of asset properties testing will be very, very important as part of database testing, especially financial type of application like banking application. So we have to conduct asset properties testing to check the data is properly updating or not, and the data is consistent or not, consistent data is there or not. And when you perform multiple transactions and the data is properly isolation feature is properly working or not, and durable or not, so which we need to test. So this is all about asset properties testing as part of database. In the next video, we will see few more concepts. So that's all for this video, guys. Thanks for watching.